He was just the janitor cleaning the stage until he sat at the piano and played a melody that broke hearts and changed lives. Everyone in the small town had seen Elliot at least once. He was that quiet janitor who always cleaned the big stage at the town's performing arts center. No one really knew his name at first. People just called him the janitor or the guy with the mop. Didn't talk much, didn't make friends, and never stayed long after his work was done. He would just clean the stage, wipe the piano, empty the trash bins, and then disappear into the night. Most of the staff thought he was just another man trying to earn a living and keep to himself. But Elliot had a story, a past, and a heart, full of pain that no one could see. Years ago, Elliot's life had been very different. Back then, he wasn't cleaning stages, he was standing on them. He was a gifted pianist, a man whose fingers could make the piano sing. He had played in competitions, at concerts, and even in front of big audiences in other cities. His dream was to become a world-famous musician, someone who could make people cry, smile, and feel everything just through his music. And he was close, so close, to making that dream real. But everything changed when Elliot met Sarah. She wasn't a musician like him. She was a teacher, someone who loved children and books. They met at a cafe where Elliot used to play piano. In the evenings, Sarah came to the cafe after work one day and heard him playing. She didn't say much at first, just smiled and listened. But something about her smile stayed in Elliot's mind. A few days later, she came again. Then again, slowly they began to talk. It started with little conversations. The weather, the music, the coffee. Then it turned into walks in the park, dinner dates, and late-night phone calls. They fell in. Love, deeply, quickly, passionately. Sarah became Elliot's biggest supporter. She told him he could do anything, be anything. When he got nervous before a big performance, she would sit beside him, hold his hand, and say, "You were born to play. Don't let fear stop you now." He believed her, believed in himself. And with her by his side, Elliot felt unstoppable. Soon they got married. It was a small wedding, nothing fancy. Just close friends, family, and a piano in the corner where Elliot played a soft tune just for her. Everyone said they were perfect together, and they were. A year later, their daughter Lily was born. Elliot had never known love so deep until he held his baby girl in his arms. She had Sarah's eyes, bright and warm. He promised himself he would be the best father in the world. He kept playing music, but now his heart was fuller, his notes even more powerful. Every song he wrote was for Sarah or Lily. But life, as it often does, took a cruel turn. One rainy afternoon, Sarah was driving home from school when her car was hit by a truck at an intersection. The accident was terrible. By the time Elliot reached the hospital, it was too late. Sarah was gone. That moment shattered Elliot's world. He didn't scream or cry in front of people. He just sat quietly holding Lily in his arms, staring at the empty hospital bed. That night, he played no music. In fact, he didn't touch the piano for months. It felt wrong. Every key reminded him of her. Every note sounded like her voice. Laughing, talking, singing with him. Music, the thing that once brought him joy, now brought him pain. He stopped performing, canceled all concerts, sold his piano. He told himself that Lily was all that mattered now. She was his life. Had to be strong for her, but being a single dad wasn't easy. There were bills to pay, diapers to buy, food to put on the table. Without Sarah's income, and without his concerts, money ran out fast. Elliot started doing small jobs. First he worked at a bookstore, then at a grocery store. But none of it was enough. One day, while looking at job boards, he saw a posting for a janitor at the Performing Arts Center. It paid a bit better and had night shifts, which meant he could take care of Lily. During the day and work while she slept, he took the job. That's how the once great pianist became the man who cleaned the stage. No one recognized him anymore. His hair had grown longer, his beard rougher, and the light in his eyes was dimmer. He didn't mind. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to survive, to raise his daughter, and maybe someday feel something again. Every night, He would push his cleaning cart across the stage floor, mop in hand. The piano, the same kind he once played on, sat quietly in the corner. He never touched it. He would only dust it gently, careful not to press any keys. The sound might break him. Sometimes, after he finished cleaning, he would sit in the back row of the empty theater. Just sit there in silence, staring at the stage. He would imagine what it used to feel like. The lights, the applause, the excitement. He would close his eyes and pretend he was still that young. Hopeful musician with a bright future and a family that cheered him on. But the silence always brought him back to reality. Alone, tired, and filled with memories that refused to fade. People at the Arts Center never asked about him. He did his work well. He was never late, never caused problems. But they didn't know his story. Didn't know that the janitor who mopped the floor could once move hearts with a single melody. Sometimes, Lily would come with him, especially when he couldn't find a babysitter. She would sit quietly in a corner with her coloring book watching. Her dad work, she loved being there. The big stage felt like a magical place to her. She would often run up to the piano and pretend to play. "Look, Daddy, I'm like you," she'd say, tapping on random keys. Elliot would smile, but there was always pain behind that smile. He never told Lily about his music career. She was too young. All she knew was that her dad cleaned a big stage and made the best pancakes in the morning. But even at her small age, she could feel that something was missing in him, like a story he didn't want to tell, or a song he didn't want to play. One night, while he was sweeping the floor and Lily was drawing with her crayons, a soft light from the stage lamp shone directly on the piano. It looked beautiful, almost magical. Elliot stopped for a moment, leaned on his broom, and just stared. His hands began to itch, not from the work, from the memories. He looked around. No one was there. It's just him and Lily. Slowly, almost nervously, he walked toward the piano. He sat down, ran his fingers gently over the keys. For a few seconds. He just sat there, thinking. Then, very softly, he pressed a key. Then another, then a few more. The sound was like a whisper from the past. His fingers moved carefully, afraid and unsure. But then, as the notes began to flow, something inside him opened up. Pain, love, grief, and hope all mixed together in the melody he played. He closed his eyes and let his hands take over. Lily stopped coloring. She watched her father wide-eyed. She had never seen him like this. He looked different, not tired, not sad, but full of something she couldn't understand. She didn't speak. She just listened. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever heard. When Elliot finished, he opened his eyes and saw Lily sitting on the edge of the stage, smiling. She walked over, gave him a hug, and whispered, "That was beautiful, Daddy." He didn't say anything, he just held her close. That night, Lily drew a picture. In it, her dad was sitting at the piano under a spotlight, and she was in the front row, clapping. She wrote one line at the bottom, "My daddy is a hero." She left it on the piano bench. Elliot found it the next morning, and for the first time in years, he cried. But they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of something new, something like hope, something like the beginning of a new story. Every evening, when Elliot walked into the Performing Arts Center with his little daughter Lily by his side, people barely noticed them. He wore his janitor's uniform and carried his keys, mop, and cleaning cloths. Lily, in her small pink jacket, always held a coloring book and a pencil. She was only 7 years old, but she was smart and observant. She noticed things. She noticed how her father looked at the piano every night, but never touched it. She noticed the way his face became quiet when he stood on the stage alone. She didn't understand it fully, but she felt something inside her heart, a kind of sadness that wrapped itself around her father, like a thick winter coat. Lily loved being with her father at the Performing Arts Center. It was big, full of lights and red velvet curtains. Sometimes she would run across the empty rows of seats, pretending to be a famous singer. Other times she would sit quietly near the stage, drawing pictures, but her favorite spot was near the piano. She'd like to sit on the side steps and just look at it. She didn't know why, but that big black piano felt special. Not just because it looked beautiful, but because of the way her father looked at it like it was part of his soul. One evening, while Elliot was cleaning the stage and humming softly, Lily walked up to him and asked, "Daddy, did you ever play that piano?" Elliot froze for a second. He didn't expect that question. He slowly turned toward her and gave a soft smile, but his eyes looked far away, like they were seeing something from long ago. "A long time ago," he said quietly. "Were you good?" she asked, tilting her head. "I used to be," he replied. Then he continued sweeping, trying to change the subject. But that short answer was enough to light a spark in Lily's heart. The next day, she told her teacher, "My daddy used to play the piano. I think he was very good." The teacher smiled and nodded, thinking it was just a child's sweet imagination, but for Lily it was the beginning of a mission. That night, she watched her father more carefully. She didn't color. She didn't run around. She just sat and waited. Elliot moved from one corner to the next, wiping down chairs, fixing curtains, and picking up papers. Finally, when everything was quiet and the hall was completely empty, he stood still in the middle of the stage. The spotlight above was dim, but enough to light his face. He turned toward the piano. Lily held her breath. Elliot walked slowly too. The bench, sat down, and placed his hands gently on the keys. At first, he didn't press anything. His fingers rested like feathers. Then, without warning, he began to play. The music that came out wasn't loud or fast. It was soft, slow, and full of feeling, like the sound of a heart remembering love and pain all at once. The notes flowed one after another, sometimes high, sometimes low, but always gentle. It was like a secret story being told with sound instead of words. Lily was amazed. She had never seen her father like this. His eyes were closed and his head moved slightly with the rhythm. He wasn't just playing, he was feeling every note. The music made her chest feel tight, like she wanted to cry but didn't know why. She didn't say anything. She didn't want to break the magic. When Elliot finished, he sighed deeply, almost like he had been holding his breath the entire time. He stood up quickly, as if afraid someone had seen him. He didn't know Lily had been watching quietly from the side steps. He thought he was alone, but that moment stayed in Lily's heart. When they went home that night, Lily didn't ask him anything. She didn't say, "I saw you play." She didn't mention the piano or the music. But later in her room, she pulled out a new sheet from her drawing book and began to draw. She drew the stage. It's a grand piano, and her father sitting on the bench, his hands over the keys, and a soft spotlight falling on him. She used dark shades for the stage and soft yellow for the light. In the front row, she drew herself, small but clapping with a big smile on her face. Below the picture, she wrote just 4 words, "For my hero, Daddy." The next night, she folded the paper carefully and brought it with her. When her father wasn't looking, she walked up to the piano, placed the drawing on the bench, and whispered, "I love you, Daddy." Then she ran back to her seat and started coloring again, like nothing had happened. Elliot found the paper when he was about to sit on the piano bench again. At first, he thought it was just a piece of trash someone had left behind. But when he opened it and saw the drawing, his heart stopped. He stared at the picture for a long time. His eyes moved from the stage to the piano, then to the small figure clapping in the front row. He knew immediately who had drawn it. He turned to look at Lily. She was pretending to color, but he noticed her cheeks were red. She had seen him find it. He didn't say a word. He folded the drawing slowly and put it in his shirt pocket. Then he walked over to Lily, sat beside her, and gently placed his hand on her head. She looked up and gave him a small smile. That night, Elliot didn't play the piano. He didn't have to. Something deeper had happened. The next few days, Lily became even more curious. Every time she came to the Performing Arts Center, she looked at the piano differently. She started asking small questions. What songs did you play, Daddy? Did you have a favorite tune? Did Mommy ever hear you play? Each time, Elliot gave short answers. Yes, I had a few. She loved them. but every answer was like a door slowly opening. One day, Lily brought her music teacher to the center. The teacher, Mrs. Rivera, was an old woman with silver hair and a kind face. I had taught music for more than 30 years. I told Mrs. Rivera, "You play piano?" Lily said proudly. Mrs. Rivera smiled and said, "Lily says, you were once very good." Elliot looked embarrassed. He rubbed the back of his neck and said, "A long time ago." Mrs. Rivera walked up to the piano and said, "Why don't you play something?" Elliot shook his head. "No, thank you. I just cleaned the place now." Mrs. Rivera didn't push. She just said, "Music never dies. It only sleeps until it hears the right hands again." And she left with Lily. Those words stayed in Elliot's mind all night. Music never dies. It only sleeps. Later that evening, after everyone had gone, Elliot stood alone on the stage again. The piano waited silently. He sat down, opened the lid, and placed his hands gently on the keys. He remembered Sarah's voice, soft and loving. "You were born to play." He began to play again. This time he didn't stop after one song. He played a second, then a third. He played the song he had played on the night he proposed to Sarah. He played the lullaby he used to play when Lily was a baby. He played the melody he had written the day she was born. Each note poured from his heart like water from a dam that had finally broken. Unknowingly, someone had entered the back of the hall, the event manager, a young man named Jared. He had returned to pick up his forgotten phone. As he walked toward the stage, he stopped. He saw Elliot, the janitor, playing the piano like a master. Jared stood frozen, amazed. He didn't say anything, just listened. When the music stopped, Elliot stood up, dusted off his pants, turned around, only to see Jared clapping softly. Elliot's face turned red with surprise. "I didn't know anyone was here." Jared smiled. It was ... unbelievable. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Elliot gave a small laugh and said, "It's a long story." Jared said, "You should play for the public sometime." Elliot shook his head. "No, I don't think I'm ready." But the idea had already been planted like a seed in his mind. That night, as he walked home with Lily, she skipped beside him, humming a tune. He realized it was the same melody he had played earlier. She had heard it from the hallway. He looked at her and asked, "Did you like the song?" She nodded. "It made me feel warm inside." Elliot smiled. "That's what music is supposed to do." Lily took his hand and said, "You should play again, Daddy. I think Mommy would want that." Elliot didn't answer right away, but he held her hand a little tighter. He had spent years hiding from music, afraid that playing again would break his heart. But now, with Lily beside him and her little drawing in his pocket, he was beginning to believe something different. Maybe music wasn't the thing that broke him. Maybe it was the thing that could help him heal. The night of the fundraiser arrived with excitement in the air. The Performing Arts Center was full of people, dressed nicely, chatting, and waiting for the show to start. It was a special night meant to raise money for the community's music program. Students were supposed to perform, and local guests were invited to enjoy music and give donations. The place was glowing with lights, and the sound of laughter filled the halls. Everyone was expecting a fun, lively event with young performers showing their talent on stage. Backstage, the organizers were rushing around nervously. Something had gone wrong. The main student performer, a teenage pianist, hadn't shown up. His mother called just 20 minutes before the show to say he had fallen sick. There was no backup plan. The organizers started panicking. People had already bought tickets. Guests were sitting in their seats waiting for the music to begin. Time was running out, and the stage was empty. Jared, the young event manager who had once heard Elliot secretly playing, was there too. He remembered the janitor's hands on the piano and the way the music had moved him. Now, seeing the panic and knowing there was no performer, he had an idea. It was risky, crazy even, but he had nothing to lose. He looked around and spotted Elliot near the side hallway cleaning a window with a towel. Lily was with him, sitting on a chair and humming quietly. Jared walked quickly over to them. "Elliot," he said, almost out of breath, "we need your help." Elliot looked up, surprised. "My help? What happened? The performer's sick?" There's no one else ready. We can't cancel in front of all those people. Elliot looked confused. I'm just a janitor, Jared. No, you're not, Jared said, his voice serious now. I heard you play the other night. You're better than any performer we have. Please, just one piece. Just 5 minutes. That's all we need. Elliot's heart started to beat faster. His hands felt cold. He hadn't played in front of people in years. What if he made a mistake? What? If he froze, I can't, he whispered, shaking his head. I'm not ready. Lily stood up and came to her father's side. She looked up at him with big, trusting eyes. Please, Daddy, she said softly. You can do it. I know you can. He looked down at her. In her eyes, he didn't see fear. He saw love. He saw belief. Slowly he nodded. Okay, he said. A few minutes later, the lights dimmed in the auditorium. People looked around, wondering who would appear. They expected a student, maybe a young teenager in a tuxedo. But instead they saw a man in a janitor's uniform walking onto the stage. He looked out of place. Some people whispered. Others laughed quietly. A few looked confused. But Elliot didn't listen to the noise. He walked straight to the piano and sat down, took a deep breath. His fingers hovered over the keys. For a moment, everything felt frozen. Then he began to play. The first notes were soft, almost like a whisper. Then they grew stronger, deeper, fuller. The music filled the room like a wave. It wasn't a flashy song or a fast piece full of energy. It was something gentle, emotional, and full of sorrow. It was the kind of music that made people stop talking, stop thinking, and just feel. Within seconds, the entire room went silent. People leaned forward in their seats. Some closed their eyes. Some clutched tissues. The music seemed to tell a story of love lost and found again, of deep sadness and quiet hope. It wasn't just a performance. It was a piece of someone's soul being shared through sound. Lily sat in the front row, holding her drawing in her lap. Her eyes never left her father's hands. She knew what he was playing. It was the song he played the night she saw him for. The first time at the piano, but now it was even more powerful. She felt it in her chest, in her heart. Elliot didn't look up once. He just played. The piano responded like it had been waiting for him. Each note was perfect. Each pause was filled with emotion. His hands moved smoothly, naturally, like they had never stopped playing. When the song ended, there was a moment of complete silence. Then, like a slow wave, the applause began. First soft, then louder, and then thunderous. People stood up from their seats, clapping, cheering, wiping tears from their eyes, shouted bravo. Others just smiled through tears. Elliot stood up slowly, surprised by the reaction. He gave a small, humble bow and began to walk off stage. Backstage, the staff and volunteers stood with their mouths open. Jared rushed up to him and shook his hand. That was incredible, he said. I've never seen anything like it. Elliot smiled softly. Thank you. But the best part was when Lily ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. I'm so proud of you. Daddy, she whispered. Later that night, as people left the center, many still talked about the performance. Some asked for the janitor's name. Others wanted to know his story. Few had recorded the moment on their phones and shared it online with captions like "unexpected genius." And the janitor who stole the show? By morning, one of the videos had already gone viral. Thousands of people saw it. Comments flooded in. Strangers from different cities wrote messages saying how deeply the music touched them. Musicians, bloggers, and even small news channels wanted to interview him. They asked, "Who is this man? And why haven't we heard of him before?" But Elliot didn't care about the fame. All he cared about was what he felt that night. Not the applause, but the peace. It's for the first time. In many years, he didn't feel broken. He didn't feel like just a janitor. He felt like himself again, the man Sarah believed in, the musician who once dreamed. The father Lily now looked up to with shining eyes. The center's director, Mr. Collins, called Elliot into his office the next day. You were amazing. He said, people are still talking about you. Thank you, Elliot replied. I was thinking, Mr. Collins continued, how would you feel about teaching piano here? Not as a janitor, but as an instructor. We have kids who'd love to. Learn from someone like you. Elliot was stunned. You want me to teach? Yes, you belong here, Elliot. Not just cleaning, but inspiring. Elliot didn't answer right away. He thought of all the years he had spent hiding, all the times he had turned away from music. Now it was coming back to him, not as pain, but as a gift. He finally said, I'd be honored. When he walked out of the office, Lily was waiting for him in the hallway. He picked her up and spun her gently. Guess what? He said. I'm going to be a music teacher. She clapped her hands and laughed. I knew it. From that day on, Elliot's life began to change. He still wore simple clothes. He still walked Lily to school and made pancakes in the morning. But now he walked through the doors of the Performing Arts Center not as the janitor, but as a teacher, a musician, and a man who had found his way back to the thing he once loved. He still kept Lily's drawing in his pocket. Every time he touched it, he remembered the moment it all began again, the night a little girl believed in her father, and the world finally saw the music that had lived in him all along. After Elliot's surprise piano performance at the fundraiser, life began to change in ways he had never imagined. What started as a quiet night where a janitor sat down to fill the silence with music had turned into a story that was spreading fast. But Elliot was still the same man underneath, humble, tired, and focused on raising his daughter Lily as best as he could. Wasn't looking for fame or applause. He just wanted to find a way back to the music that had once been his life, without losing himself again. The next morning, Elliot arrived at the Arts Center as usual. He pushed his cleaning cart down the empty hallways, nodding politely to the staff who now greeted him with smiles and whispers. They had all seen the video of his performance online, had been shared thousands of times, and had touched the hearts of many. The headline read something like, Janitor's Heartbreaking. Piano performance moves audience to tears. People from the town and beyond were amazed that such talent could be hidden behind a janitor's uniform. Elliot's phone buzzed constantly. Messages poured in from strangers and friends alike. Some were from old music teachers who had once believed in him. Others were from journalists who wanted to tell his story. Still more were from people who said his music had helped them through hard times. But Elliot didn't have time to reply to most of them. He was busy with his daily routine, cleaning, cooking, and taking care of Lily. One afternoon, a reporter named Anna came to the Arts Center. She was kind and patient, asking Elliot if he would share his story. At first, he was hesitant. He didn't want to be the center of attention. But Anna explained that his story was inspiring people. It was about loss, love, and finding hope again. Slowly, Elliot agreed to speak with her. Anna listened carefully as Elliot talked about his past, the music. His wife Sarah, and the accident that changed everything. He spoke about how hard it had been to raise Lily alone, and how music had helped him heal in small ways. The interview was honest and emotional. Anna felt honored to tell a story that was so real and touching. Meanwhile, the video of Elliot's performance continued to gain more viewers. Social media users shared it with comments like, "This made me cry," and "Talent is everywhere if we just look." The video caught the attention of music schools and community centers. Some even sent messages offering Elliot chances to teach piano or perform again, one day. Elliot received an invitation from the very Arts Center where he worked. They wanted to offer him a new role, not just as a janitor, but as a piano teacher for children in the community. At first, Elliot was surprised and unsure. He had not played in front of students for many years, but the idea of teaching Lily and other children gave him hope. He accepted the offer. Elliot's first day as a teacher was full of nervous excitement. He met children who loved music, but had never had a teacher who truly understood what it meant to connect with the piano. Elliot taught not just notes and scales, but how to feel the music, how to tell stories through sound. He encouraged his students to play from their hearts. Lily watched her father with pride. She saw him light up when he played again, the same way he used to before. His eyes sparkled with a new kind of joy. The music was no longer just a memory, it was becoming a part of their life again. The community around Elliot also began to change. People who once ignored the janitor now greeted him warmly. They admired his courage and talent. Local businesses donated money to support his teaching program. Newspapers wrote articles about how a single father had found his way back to music and was helping others do the same. But not everything was easy. Elliot still carried the pain of losing Sarah. Some days were harder than others. There were moments when he doubted himself and wondered if he was good enough to teach or perform again. But Lily's love and the support of the community kept him going. One evening, after a long day of teaching, Elliot sat alone at the piano in the empty theater. He looked at the keys and remembered the first time he had played again, when Lily had watched him and believed in him. He closed his eyes and let his fingers move freely across the keys. The music that came out was soft and healing. It was a promise to himself, to his daughter, and to Sarah's memory. The piano no longer felt like a reminder of loss. It was a symbol of hope and new beginnings. Elliot's story inspired many people, not just because of his talent, but because he showed that even after great pain, it is possible to find light again. He reminded everyone that sometimes the strongest people are those who keep going, even when they feel broken. And through it all, Elliot and Lily continued their journey together, a journey filled with music, love, and the courage to dream again. After months of quiet teaching and small performances, the day finally came when Elliot was invited to play on the big stage again, not as a janitor or a surprise act, but as the main performer. The theater was packed, people from the town, old friends, new fans, and even strangers who had watched his viral video filled every seat. The bright lights shone down on the stage, the red curtains framed the scene, and the grand piano waited silently in the middle. Lily sat in the front row, her small hands folded in her lap. She wore a pretty dress and smiled with pride. She had waited for this day for a long time. To her, this was not just a concert, it was a celebration of her father's courage, strength, and love. Elliot stood behind the curtain, dressed neatly, but simply. He took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. His heart pounded like a drum. The memories of his past still lived inside him, the pain of losing Sarah, the years of silence, the nights cleaning the stage. But now, those memories no longer held him back. They had become part of his story, a story of healing and hope. The curtain rose slowly. Elliot stepped into the light. He walked to the piano and sat down. The room was silent, expectant. He looked out at the audience and saw faces filled with kindness and encouragement. He saw Lily. Beaming with love, he smiled. He placed his hands on the keys, and then he began to play. The first notes were soft, like a gentle breeze. The melody was calm but full of emotion. It told a story of loss and love, of sorrow and strength. The music moved through the hall like a river, carrying with it every feeling Elliot had experienced over the years as he played. Elliot closed his eyes and let the music flow from his heart. His fingers moved with confidence and grace. The piano sang under his touch. He played the lullaby he had once played for Lily as a baby, a song he had written for Sarah on their wedding day, and a new song, one full of hope and new beginnings. The audience was spellbound. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others held their breath. Everyone was connected by the music, feeling the power of Elliot's journey without words. When the last note faded, theater was silent for a moment, then erupted in applause. People stood, cheering, clapping, and whistling.
Elliot.
And bowed deeply, tears in his eyes. He looked toward Lily, who was clapping the loudest, her face shining with joy after the concert. Many came to talk to Elliot. They told him how much his music had touched them. They shared stories of their own struggles and how his performance gave them strength. Elliot realized that his music was more than notes and melodies. It was a bridge between people's hearts, a way to heal and connect. Lily hugged her father tightly. "I'm so proud of you, Daddy," she said. He smiled and said, "I'm proud of you too. You helped me find my way back." That night, Elliot sat at the piano at home with Lily beside him. They played together, her small fingers pressing the keys, his guiding her with gentle hands. The room was filled with laughter and music, a reminder that life could be beautiful again. Elliot's journey from a grieving single dad, who cleaned the stage, to a celebrated pianist and teacher was more than a comeback. It was a story of love, resilience, and hope. He knew that Sarah would be proud, and he knew that, no matter what, music would always be the language of his heart.